Okay, can I ask for a show of hands, how many people could not open their eyes? Hands up. Past conditioning is very strong. Yeah. So if you want to recondition your mind, it takes effort and a lot of practice. If you're just used to meditating with your eyes closed, then when your eyes are open, you don't know how to meditate. So what percentage of your life, of your wakeful life, do you have your eyes open? How many percent is it closed? Yeah? So try to reprogram your mind. And as we saw, the principle of samatha is to steady, settle, unify, and compose the mind. The last step is samadhatabang. How to place the mind properly. How to bring and place the mind properly. How to bring and place the mind properly could mean a single object. It could mean many objects. The most important thing is how to bring and place it properly in whatever object that you want the mind to pay attention to. And do the first meditation on a concept. The mind is pretty busy trying to create and maintain something in the mind, right? Visualization and reflecting. There's a lot of mental activity. And then we come to just watch the breath. It's easier because you don't have to create anything. Yeah, you just have to just follow the breath. But towards the end, it's a bit more difficult when you have to be aware of the breathing process as well as the whole body. I know that many of you are used to focused awareness, where you just focus your attention on one particular object. Much easier job. But in Anapanasati Sutta, it says you are aware of the whole body as you breathe in and as you breathe out. Which means to say, you're not only aware of the breathing process, but you're aware of the whole body as well. In the Anapanasati Sutta, it says, I will train. First, it says he knows that the breath is long, the breath is short. That one is simple, knowing. After that, you have to train the mind to be with the breathing as well as being aware of the whole body. That requires some training. Okay? So that was a bit simpler, more simple than the first one. The first one, when we were doing the visualization and the reflection, that seems to be a lot of work. And if your energy level is not balanced, you might find that you get some tension up in your head trying to visualize. The last one on open awareness, for people who are not used to it, could also be kind of challenging. Yeah? Because instead of just fixing your attention on one single object, you're now busy with many objects. And people who are used to doing focused awareness finds this very unsettling. Yeah? But actually, in the Tibetan tradition, this is called resting the mind. You rest the mind from thinking. Usually the mind is caught up in thoughts about the past, present and future. But because the five senses can only take present objects, it can only be conscious of what's happening right now at any of the five sense doors. If the mind pays attention to these five senses, then automatically thinking will be reduced. Why? Because for most people, the mind can only take one object at a time. Although people say that one can do multitasking, scientists have wired the subjects of their experiment and found that when a person is supposed to be doing multitasking, he's not doing several things at the same time. Different parts of the brain are being stimulated, one after another, when he's doing different things. So actually he's doing one thing at a time so fast that you think it's multitasking. It's not multitasking. So actually the mind can only take one object at one time. So, when the mind is busy with the five senses, it has no time to think of the past or the future, or to imagine. So that's why when people say, be in the here and now, be in the present, it means be with your senses. That's as close to the present as you can get. You can also be with the mind in the sense that you watch what's happening to the mind, but that requires even more practice. Or else, the moment you're aware of the thoughts, you get lost in it. Yeah? So you start off with something more basic, something more gross. Just be aware of your five senses. That's one way of settling the mind, resting the mind from compulsive thinking. Right? Actually, it's not that difficult. You just sit back and allow things to happen. Like after, you dinner and wash up at the kitchen, you sit at your settee and look at the TV. You don't have to do anything. You just sit back and just watch. Yeah, everything is happening on its own. So in the same way, practicing open awareness is just simply stepping back to look at what's happening at the senses. Now, notice that I said you are not supposed to do any investigation. This is just samatha. Just be with the senses. Don't try to investigate and try to see anicca, dukkha, anatta, cause and effect. No. The samatha is just settling back and taking a rest. Settling the mind. Resting the mind from compulsive thinking. Remembering these three very important principles. Okay, please take note of this. Very important. The first one is that the five senses can only take objects of the present. The second point, the mind can take objects of the past, present, future, fantasies, imagination. Five senses cannot do that. Only the mind can do that. The third point, the mind can take one object at a time. Can only take one object at a time. So, if you're suffering from insomnia because your mind is too busy thinking about things that you are concerned with and you don't know how to stop the mind from thinking, very easy. If you just apply this principle, just relax, bring your attention to the body, be aware of your body sense. Your head touching the pillow, your shoulders touching the bed, and so forth. Go from the head slowly, systematically, from the back to the buttocks, to the thighs, to the calves, to your heels, up your soles, and then up to your nails, the top part of your feet, up your shin, your thighs. Slowly go one round. Slowly, don't do it in a hurry. And also don't do it intensely, with relaxed awareness. But because the body is very, very tired, and it's very boring to watch that, you'll fall asleep quite fast. Yeah. Otherwise, people don't know the technique. By understanding these three principles, several people have come to thank me and told me that, now they can sleep soundly. Yeah, about 5 or 6 years ago when I was in Wellington, New Zealand, someone invited me to give a talk in the Thai temple there. And I talked about this with a practical demonstration. And in the audience was a very old white lady, maybe in her 80s. She was sitting at the back and following the talk and listening to instructions, following the guided meditation on open awareness. And the next morning, another member of the audience came to see me about another issue, and she told me that this old lady told her that this was the first time she had slept soundly for years. She's probably disgruntled about some things of her life, and the mind kept on thinking about it again and again and again. She didn't know how to stop it. But once you know the principle, the mind can only take one object at a time, and the five senses can only take present objects, then you just flip the mind to be aware of the present objects, then you won't think of the past or the future. It's very simple. So that is the whole basis of open awareness. and the practice of open awareness in daily life. It's not something which you need to sit cross-legged, eyes closed, back straight, and be in an isolated place. Throughout the whole day, whenever you can afford to, and you remember to, come back to the present. Be aware of senses. When you make it a habit of being aware of your senses, then the moment you are not aware of the senses, that means the mind is thinking. All right? Then you will be able to catch the thought, and you can process the thought, whether it is productive or non-productive, whether it's worth pursuing or not worth pursuing. So if it's not worth pursuing, don't waste your energy. Let it go, come back to the present. If it's productive, well, go ahead and pursue the thought. Okay, so that is the benefit of this practice, and this is the practice that I'm going to emphasize throughout this workshop. Well, this is part of samatha. It doesn't require any background knowledge of how to view sankharas. It's just a matter of coming back to your senses. Don't worry about thoughts. Don't push them away. Don't follow them. And when you are with your senses, you are taking a break from compulsive thinking. And when that break from compulsive thinking becomes longer and longer and longer, then your mind settles and becomes more and more composed. Then you are composed most of the time. And when the mind is composed most of the time, any issues that crop up can be seen clearly and can be resolved with wisdom. But that is a later part of it. Okay?